Hi,
Hello,
I'm Julian.
I am Tom.
We're Team Binge. We are here to talk about the Lowdown, episode 5 of season 1, which we may have more than one season, possibly, but who knows? We'll call it season 1, episode 5. This one is called The Land? Question mark?
This land.
This
It's made for you
land.
and me, buddy.
Okay, yeah. It is our land. It was never their land. It's always been our land, as the song goes. So the recap, which I thought was important, is they make sure that we remember that Alan died, or at least got shot in a violent manner, which, as opposed to being shot in a non-violent manner.
Correct.
They remind us that there was an argument about Indian Head Hills, and that argument wasn't necessarily all about the land. It was also about Dale finding out that Pearl is Donald's daughter. So that is everything they reminded us. And then this episode brought in a new character. And my question for you, Tom, is this a one and done? Did Wendell show up for one? Do you think we're going to see him in other episodes? It's like we picked him up and dropped him off, and I don't know that we're going to see him again.
Yeah, I mean, I really loved their relationship, and to be able to kind of go as deep as they did for only a single episode in terms of their backstory and their friendship and kind of how it's blossomed or changed throughout the years, I thought was really, really well done. So great to see Peter Dinklage. And of course, I immediately just think of the Key and Peele sketch where they're like the Dinkles. He's my jam, he's my jelly, my peanut butter, and my peanuts. I love me some Dinkles.
I'm unfamiliar with that sketch.
Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh, you got to
No.
watch it on YouTube. Everybody, please go watch the Key and Peele. It's a Game of Thrones. Like they're like doormen or like valets, and they're just talking about the show. It's fantastic.
Gotcha.
But anyways, yeah, I loved their dynamic. I think the way they set this up is they've got a friendship. They obviously have this like yearly connection. Like if you get more shows in this series, I think he can absolutely kind of come back and bring more to Lee's character.
So you're saying this is something that if they extended this show to other seasons, that there's the availability to bring the Dinks back?
I think so. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if you need him a whole lot more in this because the way they kind of like set up the two in their relationship is they kind of complement each other, but they're both like really good at like kind of manipulating people. And I don't think you need necessarily their back and forth throughout the whole season. I think Lee does plenty of that already. So I think just kind of rounding out Lee's more of his backstory and kind of like a friend. Like, because we haven't always seen of his relationships with everybody else outside of like his mother of his daughter and his daughter. Everything has been very surface level. So it was kind of neat to be able to get a little bit deeper with seemingly an older friend.
Sure. That's fair. I enjoyed it as well, and we'll talk about it in more detail as we go. I enjoyed this episode. I'm loving this show. I really do enjoy the show. And I guess we can call it a slow burn. I don't know that I felt like we discovered more in this episode. And sometimes that's like frustrating if a show is a pure mystery. And while there is some mystery with this show, the characters are so well done that I'm not bothered by just like hanging out with them for a day and meeting some other people and experiencing Tulsa from this writer's point of view. So I did enjoy this, but I found myself at the end, I was like, well, what more did we learn? But really, I didn't care while I was watching it because I was just enjoying, the world that these guys are living in.
But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, I like the way it was maybe paced a little bit slower, but I don't think the draw to this show is trying to solve this big murder mystery like we've had in some other shows that we've kind of covered. It's a fun ride with these really well drawn out characters.
I agree. A lot of fun in a white pedo van. Yep, that's exactly right. Let's dive into it. We do start with Francis and Lee hanging out, and it is funny that Francis is the one that brings to Lee's attention that Alan is dead for one remarkable reason.
But I like the way that he like responds to her, like, "Oh, you watch the news? That's cool."
Right. Which, I mean, he's a true historian. You'd think he would check in on current affairs, but I guess he's only worried about former affairs. So I appreciate Frances wanting to help. I do like this actress. I think she does a good job in this role. And then you can kind of see Lee being like, and he gives her that speech about like, I closed my eyes and then I was 30. He's like, go have a childhood. And I appreciated this father-daughter back and forth.
Yeah, I also appreciate the therapist note that he gave her. Just a bunch of scribbles. Just tell them it's from your therapist. They won't question it.
In order to get into class. Yeah, I had one time where I had to get into school and I had no excuse, and someone that I knew who had a similar name to me handed me their tardy slip and was just like, they're never going to look at it. And I was like, oh, okay. And it worked, Tom. They don't read the notes. Our lesson to children is forge notes. No one checks paperwork these days, especially at pharmacies. All right. And then Lee, he's back at the store. We have this brief moment where a pamphlet is handed about like a woman's wellness retreat. And I was wondering if this was going to come into like larger play, but it seems like this is just something for him to hand Betty Jo later on in the episode. Was that all this was? I don't think we're going to go deeper into... This isn't a place of murdering women that killed Dale, right? This is just some place for Betty Jo to find safety at.
Yeah, I think so. This is just like a means to set up this story beat a little bit later. Yeah, I think that's all it was. And namaste, by the way.
Namaste, thank you. And then comes Wendell. So this is Peter Dinklage. And, you know, you got to pick it up from context clues. I guess they used to be really good friends. They used to be partners in the bookstore. Lee bought him out. I appreciated Dinklage's character and just, you know, how old friends talk to one another that, like, they're not really still friends, but there's so much history that, like, they kind of fall back into an old rhythm, but at the same time, there's definitely some animosity. I appreciated how this was done.
Like Lee even going upstairs, he's like, "Oh, where is he?" kind of a thing, and you're like, "How does he know that this is Wendell?" And it's just from like the books being reorganized downstairs.
Right.
Like it's a great little back and forth. And then even like Dinklage's like introduction of him walking out of the bathroom and then giving that line. It was treacherous. Like he delivers it so well. I love him, and I love his back and forth and chemistry that they seemingly have on the show.
Sure, and we established that he's back for this one day because it's the annual ritual of the passing of their friend. The quick flashbacks of just the debauchery and everything that went down. I mean, just great, like quick. We kind of know what's happening and what they like do. We've seen how Lee lives, and it's kind of like, okay, Wendell brings it even to a, I guess, a further degree.
Stealing cop cars, all that stuff. Whenever I watch these sequences, it always makes me think of like how much fun this would have been as like an actor, because you get thrown into these like ridiculous situations. They film you for, you know, probably a while, but it only finds 3 seconds on camera. It's lovely.
Right. You got to stand outside of a gas station and throw up in a trash can, and like it's 3 seconds, but it's so memorable that I could close my eyes right now. And all right, and we find out that the friend that passed is Jesus, and he did not return after 3 days. He is dead and gone. And I guess we can talk about it later, but there's a degree of blame passed between the two. I guess we feel that Wendell blames Lee for what happened to Jesus, and I guess we can touch on it when we get to that later on. But it was, I guess, not so devastating that these two don't continue this ritual. There's not so much guilt and blame.
Yeah, I really liked that conversation. We'll kind of get to it a little bit later.
Sure. Very quickly, Lee explains to Wendell what's all going on in his world. And I think I've brought this up before. Lee is very trusting, and all of a sudden he's just like, listen, there are murders, there are people after me. Like, Dale didn't commit suicide, he was murdered. It just feels like maybe some of this you keep a little bit closer to the chest.
I tend to agree. It's very much that one lady from Murder at the End of the World that immediately gets intelligence and then spreads it with everybody. A lot of same vibes.
Right. And you never know friend from foe when everyone knows your secrets. I appreciate Wendell's judgment on Lee's, I guess, his Washburn. He's like, I read it, your magazine piece.
Yeah, it's pretty much a puff piece. That was a great line.
Right. Most people think it was so bad that it caused Dale to commit suicide, where Wendell is like, it was a puff piece. Then they make this bet, which is really the driving kind of plot of this episode, which is he needs to know where this Indian head land is, and Wendell bets him a meal that he can find it in under 2 hours. And I appreciated this.
Yeah, it was fun. I was like, oh, he's going to have these like fancy contacts, but like, no, they essentially just take a drive and then he kind of schmoozes this lady here in a bit. It was fun.
Yeah, and speaking of people that are schmoozing ladies, I don't know if that's the term you just used, but I tried. We have old Marty Chubb on a blind date, and I think we saw him like swiping on an app at some point. So I
wasn't really blind at that point then.
That's true. I don't know what those types of dates are called, but I'm interested in the Marty Chubb, like, I don't know what we're supposed to... I want Marty Chubb to, like, align with Lee and be one of his allies, but it's almost like in this episode they were pitching us a guy that is maybe, like, in with the wrong crowd, trying to be better and, like, have a personal life and kind of get out of it, but then at the end of this, because the date goes bad, he's just all in with this evil Donald Washburn. Was that the arc of Marty Chubb in this episode?
Yeah, I don't know, and I was going to ask you later, like when he does essentially say, like, yeah, Donald, I'm all in, like, that was surprising because it seemed like he had a connection with this woman and they were potentially getting it on well, and then she kind of gives him that ultimatum. It's like, hey, when you get this Donald guy out of your life, like, look me up kind of a thing. And
which is
yet
interesting
he still dives in.
They've gone on one date. So are we are we in a position to tell him not to answer his employer's call after one date? Tom, I pose the question to you. You're like the Dear Abby of our generation. People often write to you at your long form magazine in order to get dating advice. During a first date, am I allowed to tell someone to quit their employer in order to dedicate their life to love?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big red flag if you're on a date and the person's getting a phone call. Somebody's actually calling them on the phone and not texting. The person clearly has monster friends.
Well, that, or is that just ageism, Tom? Are we putting someone in a bracket where they still want to, dial up the old rotary phone and talk to someone through the hand speaker? I don't know.
Okay, that's fair. Did you recognize this woman, though? I think it's Tisha Campbell. I think she played Gina from Martin. Like, she was immediately recognizable to me from, like, watching that show growing up, and I loved her in this. She was great.
You talking about, like, Martin on UPN when we were kids?
Yeah, like, Martin Lawrence.
After hanging with Mr. Cooper or something like that? Is that what you're...
Yes.
Are you
1000%, yes.
questioning me on my Martin knowledge, Tom?
Did you recognize her?
No, I did not. But I do remember watching Martin for some reason.
That was a great show.
Oh, sure. Once again, I was more of a sister hanging with Mr. Cooper guy.
Okay.
Nice. All right. We have a quick scene of Betty Jo, and I've got so many questions about Betty Jo, and we can talk about it later when she meets up with Lee. But the setup here is Donald Washburn, who had witnessed Lee leaving after their night of, we'll say, dancing horizontally. He is upset. He's like, what did you tell Lee? She's like, I didn't tell him anything. He, like, damages a cupboard. He gets pretty domestic violence-y and threatening. And turns out my prediction that Donald was a nice guy just mixed up with the wrong crowd, not accurate, Tom. He is clearly evil in this scene and the last scene.
Yeah, he's a terrible person. And, like, I mean, it's almost like Alan is now out of the picture, and we built him to be this, like, menacing figure, killing those guys in cold blood, and now Donald is very quickly taking the reins and being a terrible person to Betty Jo.
Sure. And yeah, that's fair. We lost our big bad, and so all of a sudden we have Donald making the turn to being a major big bad. I do want to shout out our buddy Tim from Taiwan who reached out to us. And we had some questions about like Alan and his backstory and what he became. And from Tim's email, he reminded us that we should be slow to judge people. So even though you witness them murder 2 people on a bridge in cold blood, take a beat because there's a lot going on in their lives. And so Tim from Taiwan, I appreciate you sending us that note. We heard you, and you know what? I don't think Alan was that bad of a guy. That's my official stance.
Listen, I get the sentiment of Tim's email because, like, the idea of people being complicated, and it's very difficult to, like, paint them in a box. But yes, I agree. The murdering is a little bit tough to overlook.
No. I'm just messing. For those of you that want to reach out to us, you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. Tim, we'd love to hear from you again. We enjoyed your email. All right. This all ends with Donald storming out, and he has the gun that is Dale's gun. Now, the last time we saw this gun, I believe it was put under a couch cushion.
Correct.
Now it's in the kitchen. I just want to say the weapons handling in this show is a crime in itself. When Donald leaves, he grabs this gun in the same way Michael Scott handles scissors that are thrown to him. He just, like... Everyone assumes the gun's empty. They're like flipping it around. Like if a kid walked by, Donald would be like, "Hey, you want to play catch?" And like they'd throw it back and forth like a football. Like for Oklahomans, these people have been around guns. They should know how to handle them. But I'm just surprised more people aren't Oh, and she's like, "Oh, it was shot recently. It accidentally went off." No one blinks an eye. No one's like, "Oh, it went off at the house." Like, are you okay? Did it go through a window? They're just like, in these people's world, guns go off on accident all the time. And it made me furious, Tom.
It would have been great if, like, when instead of meeting her, like, in the kitchen, like, walking around the house, she's, like, spackling the wall from when she had to repair the bullet hole. Right. And there's, like, a company outside replacing the glass. That would have been good.
Right, but since she's leaving the home because she's being evicted, she wouldn't actually do spackling. She would just fill it with toothpaste, which is an old trick I learned in college when you were had to take care of a wall to get your security deposit back.
Yeah, but you use like the Crest. You use the Crest blue paste with little sparkles in it.
Yeah. That's exactly right. I mean, those holes were never whiter than when I smeared that stuff on there.
I do want to ask, as you being more of a gun enthusiast than I, Donald makes a point of like, this gun has been fired recently. Can you tell that by just looking at a gun?
I mean... It depends on whether or not, if like Dale was meticulous in his cleaning and you could tell there was like carbon on it, I guess, but no, it's not like it would still smell because, I mean, it was from the night before. I don't know. It kind of reminded me of the time, Tom, I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Almost Heroes, but there's a time where it's Chris Farley and Matthew Perry. And Chris Farley sees this piece of dung on the ground, and he like picks it up.
What happens next?
And he's like, "Oh, there's a herd of buffalo close," because he's touching the buffalo patty. And Matthew Perry's like, "Oh, you can tell that from it?" And he's like, "No, I see the herd right over there." And the joke being like, why is he handling it I don't know, Tom, if you've ever seen that movie. But that's what that reminded me of when he's like, "Oh, this gun's been fired recently."
Yeah, you've only said that story on just about every episode or every series of podcasts. I feel like you love that joke and that scene so much. You want to make sure any new audience members we have that are joining us for this series get that joke. And I appreciate that about you.
Tom, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never told that story before in my life. Anyways.
It gets better every time.
All right, so now the gun, Dale's essential murder weapon or suicide weapon, is now in Donald's hands. So I would assume that's going to come into play somewhere.
I figure they would have taken that gun, right? What's the ruling on that?
I don't know.
Police have it?
He seems to have law enforcement in his pocket based on the end of this episode. So I guess if you want it ruled a suicide, there's no reason to keep a weapon if the coroner, just says suicide. So
yeah, fair.
Anyways, Lee and Wendell. I could spend all day with these guys, and we do, in a way. They drive over to Skiatook, and Skiatook is the land of the Washburns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Washburgs, thank you. Throughout the outline, it's spelled either way, just depending on how deep I was in the bourbon in the time. Lee tells Wendell that he talked with Betty Jo and he got this information. Mm-hmm. Wendell immediately clocks it that they've had a romantic liaison.
Yeah.
This all leads to them stopping at the municipal courthouse in order to look at old maps. And I loved this Sandy character and just how repulsed she was by Lee, and then how Wendell was like, listen, let me lay the charm on. And it was like so like veiled so thinly of like, mm-hmm. I'm charming you, Sandy. You're a catch. Like, I don't know. This was all very fun. And I'm sure Dinklage, they're like, hey, we need you for one day and you're going to have a lot of fun. And he was like, I'm in. I get to wear a foot brace? Sure, let's do it.
Yeah, for no reason. But yeah, I love this scene. Like I said in the beginning, like this is all kind of confirming both of these guys are just very smooth talkers and are very capable.
One more than the other, I would say.
Yeah. Smooth and rough talkers to be able to kind of get themselves in and out of situations. And again, like, yeah, Dinklage's performance is so good. And him, like, as Lee's in the background, like, shouting something, and he's just, like, closing his eyes, like, just Lee, shut up. Yeah. It's just so good. So good. Doesn't need to turn around. He just tells him to shut up.
Yep. And this all leads to them needing a map before, like, the 1950s, which mm-hmm. will inevitably lead to them finding where Indian Head land is. I'm saying mm-hmm. It's Indian Head, right?
Indian Head Hills.
Indian Head Hills. Okay, wonderful. Quick cut from the municipal courthouse. This episode threw a couple of storylines in here that I'm curious about and a little bit confused. We're with some old white guys at a seemingly private gun range where there's... If you wanted to know that they had some, like, Nazi and skinhead tendencies, they're like, what handgun says Nazi more than the old German Luger? And so, I don't know. And it's a little bit strange. So we've met Frank before. Frank is played by Tracy Letts. We have this other gentleman that's doing the shooting, and they talk about...
Tracy Letts... I think Frank was doing the shooting. The other guy was just talking about it. Or do I have that wrong?
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
I don't know. They're like, hey, let's show them we're a little bit racist. Let's like talk about how much we love a German Luger. Also, my favorite book is Mein Kampf. That's what the character in the show is saying. Jimmy, please don't cut that out and make that a clip on its own.
Okay.
But,
you got it, buddy.
Thanks, Jimmy. They talk about Alan being killed, and Alan was working for Frank, Tracy Letts. Mm-hmm. Frank is under the impression that Alan was like doing better, that he was going to meetings, he was on the mm-hmm. program, he was working, so he had kind of turned it around. But you get the other sense that this other guy had Alan doing things that were like, I guess, off the books, illegal. Like he kind of yada yadas around Alan doing well. He puts him in the same kind of lump of like ex-cons that are still Breaking Bad. That's the sense you got, right?
Yeah, and it almost seemed like this other guy with Frank, and I didn't clock his name, he seemed like the mastermind of this all. Like, he seemed to know potentially that, like, even that he got killed, and, like, he had it come in and all this kind of stuff. Like, I feel like it's implied that Frank is under pressure from this guy, as kind of Frank talks to Donald a little bit later. That's how I perceived it.
Okay, so we don't think Frank is necessarily evil, and we don't know...
I think he is. I think he's involved in this evil plot, but I think like he's taking marching orders from this dude that he's teaching how to shoot a Luger.
Right. I mean, the action's so smooth. It's so smooth, that Luger. Doesn't
win wars, though.
What I did not appreciate, to your point, I did not clock this other guy's name. Had we met him before? I felt like they threw him into this episode with no preamble, and so it was a little bit confusing trying to, like, we kind of piece it together later when, to your point, he's like, Frank, like, you need to make this happen, like, we're expecting a lot from you. So, you know, we do get that he's some sort of higher up big bad, but I found this a little bit confusing just to throw this character in here.
Yeah, I agree. Like the way they kind of brought him in, because even like Frank's character, like we got a little bit from him when Lee was kind of in that meeting, but we don't have much about his backstory. So I'm sure we'll get more.
We've seen him in the first episode in like kind of a one-off board meeting. We saw him briefly at the funeral, and then he got brought back now, and so it is a little bit strange. But Wendell and Lee stop off at a bar. They have like some waters, I think.
Yeah, I love that they split up the papers. He immediately finds what they're looking for, you know, gives it to Lee, and then just seemingly downs a very thick Guinness. That's what it looked like to me. Very impressive.
You don't chug your Guinness? I would never. I mean,
don't.
I think you're.
I don't drink my Guinness.
I don't drink.
I use it for motor oil. I put it in my car.
You lube your Luger with it. All right.
Exactly.
This leads them to the White Elk LLC. Which is a property which used to be the Indian Head Hills based on the map. White elk, is this too on the nose? Are these elks also racist? I don't think there's such a thing as a white elk. Maybe like an albino elk? Was this them once again reminding us that there are white supremacists in this storyline? I appreciated the back and forth where they're like, there are no elk in Oklahoma. And he's like, yeah, there are. I know stuff about animals. You know I know stuff about animals. I appreciated all of that.
It's like all that kind of dialogue, which like it just seems silly on its face, but just really plays at these characters and their backstory. It's fantastic. I loved it.
Right. And anytime someone's like, you know I know about these things. You know, and it's just like an argument and something that they've had previously, and it keeps being brought up. We start to get kind of a little bit deeper into the like why these two had a falling out in terms of Lee's like, listen, man, you used to be kind of fun. Like now you don't like anything, and also, both of them, Tom, I'm sure you clocked it. Got hammered at that bar and drove right on out to White Elk. They did not Uber, you know. But as they're drunkenly peeing on signs, Lee points out that Wendell doesn't like anything, and then he points out that like Lee is trying to change the world through his articles and his writing, and like they've become people they didn't want to become, which I thought was interesting. And I would be interested to know like, if Jesus was like the glue, or if Jesus was a glue guy, you know, if he was the one that kind of kept this trio in line and like moving in the right direction. Because I think in a group of friends, you need a peacemaker, especially with two strong-willed individuals like Wendell and Lee. So I think Jesus might have been their glue guy.
Yeah, I think that's a really astute point, because I think they were probably at each other's throats a lot, and Jesus probably kind of filled the gap in between them. So now that he's gone, they're still trying to keep the relationship because there's clearly love there, but there's also a lot of, I wouldn't call it hate, but a lot of disagreement that ultimately leads to a little bit of light wrestling here.
Right, leads to some light wrestling, which it's good because that allows them to be in the prone when some guys in an old racist truck drive up with racist guns, and they check on the van. And so I just want to point out that the show just made them feel racist. That's all. Also, they're hanging around White Elk property, so racist.
Agreed.
Have I used that word enough, Tom?
Yeah. Racist by proxy. That'll be whenever the AI does like our chapters for this podcast, because it dictates it. This part of the podcast will be called racists.
Racist by proxy. Okay, all right. Cut from the action of the show to two people also on a date looking to wrestle in the grass. Marty and his date. And this is where, as we've talked about, Donald just keeps calling Marty, really showing his age because he doesn't text. Actually, he does text once. He's like, why aren't you calling me? Which is something an old person would do. And they get into kind of the deep, like, Marty and Donald, what their relationship has been, that there's, like, a canyon between them. And she makes some very astute points. I for a first date, we get into some deep stuff, and I didn't really understand why we were doing this. I like Marty as a character. I like that he's conflicted, but I don't know whether or not this date is going to show back up in the show, or why this leads to Marty making the decision he makes in the end.
Yeah, I would assume it's a little bit twofold. It's like there are older people that are probably less about like the silly little small talk and want to have like meaningful conversation. And obviously Marty's like, he admits here that he wanted to be a writer. He's very eloquent in his speech, and she even kind of clocks it. Like, I like how you talk. But yeah, like, I mean, her response at the end I think was great. It was like you don't know what he does or you don't want to know kind of a thing. Because I think she was essentially reading between the lines that there could be some fishiness kind of going on. And I'm very interested to see what arc Marty eventually goes on, because I'm with you. He's still kind of like on the fence, even though he does seem to say like, I'm all in, Donald. I still don't get that sense.
Right. Yeah, I'm curious about this character and how he is going to play into the adventure that Lee is on. So I'm giving like the writing of this show the credit it's due, that they are like laying groundwork for later. So I enjoyed spending time with Marty on his date. I don't think it affected like the main part of this episode, but I trust this writer enough that I'm interested to see where it goes. Speaking of trust, we have Lee and Wendell meeting with their realtor. I just, from a realtor's perspective, you're showing a house and these two donkeys show up. Like, I thought this would be so annoying, right?
Oh, it's so incredible. Like, she's like has this cute couple here that seemingly, I think she might be pregnant. They're getting ready to start buy their first home, and she's like talking them up, and then these guys come and like not peel out, but like do an abrupt stop right in front of the house, scream at her with the window open, and then coming right at her. It was a lot, and it was great.
Yeah, alcohol's been involved. They probably reek of Guinness. One of them's in a cast. Just perfect.
I love how when she does ask him, like, "Oh, what happened to your foot?" He's like, "Skateboarding, kickflip." Like, just such a great. And he's like kind of digging her, like he's like kind of hitting on her in this sequence, and then Lee. It's like, I don't know, kind of sort of protective, and we kind of talked about like what we think potentially Lee and Vicky's history has been, and there probably was something there, but it was a great exchange.
Vicky's got chemistry with everyone, she's doing
Makes her a great realtor.
Job. Yeah, exactly. So they ask her to look up White Elk LLC, which is her making some calls, and then we have this moment where we discover that White Elk LLC, the land, is being bought by OneWell, and they're doing it at a much larger price than what it should be listed as.
Yeah, it's like 4x the value or something like that, which immediately has Lee jump to the conclusion of the money laundering.
Right, money laundering. We don't know, like, is the assumption that OneWell is going to be part of Akron? Is that the assumption? All these like oil and gas exploratory land companies, they all have great names, but in the end, they're probably all just umbrella for Akron, right?
Yeah, it's all Lendl Global. We're in everything.
We keep you alive.
Yeah.
All right. Speaking of people that keep us all alive, there is a rich person donor meeting. And this is us back with Frank Martin, who's Tracy Lentz. And he is giving a speech. And this was kind of prepped when they were shooting the Luger. Like, hey, you're going to have to give a speech. This is important. And Frank's like, I don't really like speeches. But he's given a speech. And the main point I took from this is that they are trying to form some sort of legislation in order to break up the power that local Indian tribes have over like land, and essentially they're claiming that these Indian tribes have too much power, which once again brought me back to Killers of the Flower Moon, where the Osage Indians, when they took on that reservation, that land, they wrote in that they got the mineral rights, which was very rare for reservations. And so I'm interested to know what this group of rich white people is ultimately trying to do, other than take power back from these Indian tribes.
Well, listen, it's not about race, okay? And you know it's not about race when you say it's not about race.
It's not about race.
Yeah. Makes you not a racist.
Whenever you start a sentence with, listen, I'm not racist, but you're about to kind of prove a point, I would say.
Yeah. And like this whole idea of this like rich people club, or the 46, I guess they kind of call them, like they're pointing directly to Donald, and they need Donald to push their agenda. And like, I guess this is Donald getting the extra funds or the political clout to be able to become governor. But yeah, all this is just icky and awful, and wish the worst for these people.
Sure, these guys. Well, let's hear them out. Let's see what they're. Let's.
Okay,
let's see
people are complicated.
People are complicated. Let's watch them kill a couple of people first, and then we'll make some slow decisions. I took the 46 to be kind of like Colbert's super PAC, right? These guys are just forming a bunch of money so that they can get Donald hired as the governor, so that he will do their bidding. And we see a little bit of a crack in the armor, because Frank is like kind of pushing on Donald in order to close this deal on White Elk, this land deal, and Donald is pushing back. And so the sense I'm getting is that there is this powerful cabal, no, that's not how you say that, group of rich guys trying to control Donald, but then Donald is kind of backdealing it. And in the end, we see he like owns law enforcement, and so he has kind of his own like local power center, and so I'm interested to see. Like, I don't feel like Frank and Donald are on the same team, although Frank thinks they are. Is that fair?
Yeah, I feel when I first watched this scene, I was thinking that Frank was anxious from the other dude that he was with earlier. And like the other dude being the bigger bad, and like he needs Donald's help to kind of close this deal, and was like putting pressure on Donald, and that Donald was just kind of like, he knew he was in trouble or needed to do something, but was kind of shaking it off like it's no big deal. But at the end of this, so then that would have put like Donald to be a little bit more anxious and potentially like under the gun to do something.
Right.
But at the end, when you see like the immense amount of power that Donald seems to have in this town or city, like it does seem like, yeah, Donald may be pulling the strings more, and Frank is the like essentially like a patsy or some liaison between him and this bigger group. I don't know what to make of it quite yet.
Sure. And by immense power Donald is wielding, we mean the amount of firearms in people's hands at night that are blowing up things across from ponds.
Oh yeah, and sledgehammers to trucks. Like that's a fun party.
So strange. The best type of party. I hope to be invited to one someday. Quick cut, and we had forgotten about this, but the show does a good job reminding us of Blackie's friends, Blackie being one of the white supremacists that's murdered on the bridge by Alan. They see a YouTube video of Lee's security singing a song, burning a car, and apparently that car is definitely Blackie's car.
I like how they were able to clock it was Blackie's car because it had like a bump on the fender or something like that, which seemed like a bit of a stretch. But
sure.
I don't know, maybe earlier in the video before the car was really torched, you could see it better.
Sure. It had like a baby on board sticker, and they were like, oh, Blackie definitely had a baby on board sticker. This leads to them going to Lee's store and a confrontation. I love Wendell in this moment.
Now it comes in hot.
Oh, comes in so hot. He's ready to rumble. And this leads to the security guard shooting a gun in the air, which, once again, the weapons handling in this show, just off the charts. Lee's like, you can't do that? I'm like, I'm pretty sure you can. In fact, Tulsa feels like one of those places where it's still on the books that you can fire around in the air. No shots at Tulsa, literally, no shots at Tulsa. But I'm pretty sure that is definitely legal. One of our 2 listeners from Tulsa, reach out to me. Let me know if you can fire around in the city limits just for funsies. Yeah. I do like a pop, as they call it.
Yeah, it's a bookstore pop. But the fact that he does clock it and say, bullets do come down, right? Like, that's good. Good response.
So good. Marty's date doesn't, I don't know that it doesn't end well. It just ends with, I guess, he wants it to continue or have a drink, and she kind of shuts him down just because how much Donald wants to be in his life, I guess.
Well, she calls him incurious, which I thought was kind of interesting. And it made me think of like, was he not like asking her questions? Like she was kind of probing him and asking him about Donald, but maybe he wasn't doing enough of that with her and was just kind of more focusing on his own stuff. But she does say at the end, like, yeah, reach out if and when you move on from this Donald guy. Because it seemed like she doesn't think he's good for his life.
Sure. You'd think she'd know who Donald was. I mean, how hard is it to be like Donald Washburn?
Did he say the last name? I guess that's a very interesting point, right? Because he would be a prominent political figure, but maybe if he just said Donald, she wouldn't have known that this is actually of Washburn fame.
Right, and then, so you're like, okay, you're working for the governor-elect, that's pretty important. I don't know. Once again, this whole date kind of setup confused me, but ultimately it got us to the point where Marty reaches out to Donald to accept the job offer. And
what's your take though? Like, did that surprise you? I mean, I know we talked about this a little bit in the beginning, but is your assumption is like he's just maybe wanting to stay on the inside and take him down?
No,
or
I don't have a read on Marty and what his like goal is. I want him to be good, but you know, sometimes we get into a rut. You know, same job, same employer. It feels comfortable. You just keep doing what you're doing. It's tough to change as a person. So.
Yeah,
that's ultimately what I got from that. But much like you, I mean, I love this actor, and I want to see where his storyline goes. I don't know why we spent the time in this only to come to the conclusion that he's going to join Donald.
It's weird for this to be the catalyst of him saying yes.
Right. What if he pulls the app up and he gets swiped left or right or up or down on the thing, and there's another date like. Is he going to be like, hey, Donald, hang tight. I know I accepted that job offer, but I need to go watch old boxing movies. Because that sounds like a fun date. I like how she's like, I didn't see myself as someone, that liked old boxing movies, but I kind of enjoyed it. I was like, she's being so polite to you right now, Marty. It's insane.
Yes.
All right. I think the most poignant moment of the episode, and what I enjoyed the most, and surprised me a little bit because it is kind of a one-off, is this ceremony that Wendell and Lee do, where they set a fire in a trash can, they pick a book to burn for Jesus. So, and you do get the sense that there's like a literature relationship between these guys. Like they quote different things. They talk about books in such a way that we in modern times do not, because some people hate to read. And so I don't know. I thought this was interesting that they had like a ritual they did, and I mean it leads to them having a heart-to-heart. But I enjoyed this.
Yeah, it's like when the scene kind of started, I was like, okay, I kind of see what's going to happen here. They're going to have this kind of heart-to-heart, and I was kind of like, I don't know, I wasn't all in on it. But then once they kind of get going and they kind of admitted like kind of their faults, they kind of used the picture they passed back and forth as like, you can't talk unless you're holding this picture kind of thing, and like admitted a lot of hard truths. I thought was really great, and obviously both these actors are phenomenal, so they pair off each other really well. But I had to ask the question in the beginning, like, because they're literature minds, I don't understand why they would choose to burn a book. Like clearly this guy Jesus appeared to be a drummer. Like maybe bring like a drum. You guys can beat a drum instead of burning books.
Sure.
But I don't know. Fire's just cool.
Set a drum on fire. Set a drum kit on fire. I agree, Tom. It's a little bit more expensive than a paperback, but this is only once a year. And these guys, I mean, we've seen Lee with cash. He'll burn through it. Why doesn't he just burn cash? I don't know.
Exactly.
I'm with you. I mean, I think it was just showing us that there was a deeper relationship that we as an audience don't see, but it established that, they've done this before, and that, once again, there was a tie to literature. And then to your point about like them using the picture to say things to one another, that also kind of reinforced, hey, Jesus was the guy that would say the thing that kept the group together, or like addressed what wasn't being said in order to keep the relationship going and keep the bond there. So I liked how they did that. And I did not know why they burned the picture of him. It's like, do you just print off? That was like an actual picture. Do you go to I don't know, I was going to say Walgreens and CVS and print film, but I don't know if people still do that anymore.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised when they threw it. I figured that would be the picture that they bring every year. But yeah, again, I like how it ends of essentially both of them realizing their own faults and saying, hey, together we'll make one heck of a person. It was great. But in there, I think there's a line. I don't know if it's Lee to Wendell or vice versa, but where he says, like, it's scary to be your friend. And that's like, I mean, that's rough. Like, if you really think about that, because he just doesn't know, like, the path he's on. And I don't want to, like, you know, he even says it, like, I don't want to see you die. It was rough. It was a great conversation. And again, very well written and acted sequence.
Yeah, it's Lee to Wendell. Wendell being this, like, wild card. You see him so ready to throw down against 3 gentlemen that, you know, have guns. And so...
They had bats. They had bats. He could have taken them.
That's fair. Yeah, an expression of love from a friend. And he's like, I know you are a crazy person, but I don't want you to get yourself killed. So, yeah, I thought that was... wonderful. This all leads to him dropping him off at his house. And the way they shot this, I was like, okay, so Wendell's not coming back. That's kind of how I took this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do appreciate like Wendell's leaving. He's like, stay greasy, which is great.
Yeah, they do both look very greasy. And yeah, like they're covered in Guinness. All right. So back at the diner, Betty Jo and Lee. Betty Jo tells Lee that, hey, Donald knows about us. He came in, he punched a cabinet, he took the gun, and she sets Lee up of, like, Donald being the big bad and threatening, and she comes off like, I need protection. And I think we clocked it in the last episode where she's sharing things with Lee and kind of painting a picture, and he even clocks it. He's like, are you using me right now?
Right.
And so my spouse in watching this moment was like, she goes, something along the lines of, is Betting Joe just setting everybody up? And so I don't know. I had that thought.
Yeah, we still
because
don't know
my wife gave me that thought. I didn't have that thought. She was like, hey, you should think this. And I was like, of course, honey, whatever. Yeah, of course.
No. It's hey, listen, you're married. It's we had that thought. So you're good.
Our nausea. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't disagree. Like, it would be interesting to see her being more manipulative than we already have seen on screen. Like, what are the things that she's done behind the scenes that we haven't seen? Because I was going to say, we don't really still know how and why Dale, whether, you know, we don't think he killed himself, but like, what were the circumstances of his death? And did Betty Jo maybe have more to do with it than she's leading on? But yeah.
And it is worth pointing out, she was the only one in the house with him when he died.
Yep.
That we know. So I'm not saying she is the murderer, but Lee then quotes...
If the boot fits.
If the boot fits, you must acquit. That's right. And then Lee quotes Shakespeare, and he says, get ye to the women's spa, the women's wellness spa. And so Betty Jo is off to the... Good thing he had that pamphlet in his pocket all day.
Oh, yeah. Good timing.
This is intercut with a beautiful woman beautifully playing guitar, and I was like, is that Pearl? Are we supposed to know that's Pearl? Did we know Pearl sang? Like,
it took me a beat, to get there. But yeah, she seems like this generation's Jewel. She was fantastic.
Which would make sense because her name's Pearl, Tom. Man, so many layers. Man.
They know what they're doing.
Yeah, it'd be like her middle name's probably Diamond or I don't know, Rock Ore or something. Lee goes to talk to her. He's like, hey, great song, by the way. Oh, and then the police drag him out. And we're like, okay, what's happening here? And these are the two, pardon my French,
hot cops.
Jackass cops from earlier in the show.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even clock that. These weren't the hot cops.
They're so dang hot. Oh, man. You want us to strip? Anyways.
Rest and quote, drink.
You got the drugs. That's one of the greatest episodes of television ever. You can put your shirt down.
Go watch Arrested Development, everybody.
All right. Yeah, I'll just...
But yeah, I didn't... I don't know if I did clock that this was the two dudes that were like yelling at him in front of the bookstore at one point, and it obviously makes sense. They're in Donald's pocket.
Yeah. And then they take him to a weird house party where one hangs out at a weird gazebo. But
So much going on.
I think this was a oneer. This was like a single shot through the house, through the party. And I was like, all right, show, slow down. Like, this is not Goodfellas. Like, we got it. But I don't know. There was a lot going on here. And I did not feel like... If the payoff was it was someone else that turned around, I guess I would, like a new character, I'd be like, cool, but it's Donald. We know he's evil. So I'm very curious as to the necessity of all of the rounds expelled and cars broken during this scene, which we should point out, it's just like a bunch of law enforcement, right? That was the main thing that you picked up from this crowd?
Yeah, I mean, it seemed like a law enforcement, and then it seemed like potentially some white supremacists and stuff in there as well, would be my assumption. Yeah, I don't know. There was a lot going on. I think it was, again, very well shot, but like shooting and explosions and car smashing and everybody seemingly hating Lee, which was also kind of interesting. Like, maybe they're all that close to Donald Washburn and they know that he's an author that wrote this puff piece on him. Like, I didn't really understand why everybody was like flipping him off and hated him so much. Because if I'm just a dude at a party, even if it is by Donald Washburn, I wouldn't necessarily know this guy's being like trounced through the whole party to go to his most menacing of gazebos.
Yeah, the most you'd get out of me is I'd be like, oh, hey, that's Maya Hawke's dad. I don't remember his name.
Exactly.
You know, something along those lines.
Yeah.
I appreciated how this was shot. Ultimately, Donald Washburn bathed in red light, both outdoors and indoors, to quote John Mulaney in that gazebo. Pretty great. But ultimately, he's not like the kind of bumbling politician, nice guy that they kind of fed to us in the first 2 episodes, I would say.
Right. Yeah, agreed. Like, this is kind of just showing how deep Donald's corruption goes, and I'm interested to see where they take this and what this conversation is ultimately going to be. Because clearly, I don't know if this is all just an intimidation tactic. I think that's probably what it'll be, but I think as an audience know it's not going to stop Lee.
I do want to say this. We don't actually know that anything that's happening at this party is illegal. They might be outside city limits. This might be zoned as a gun range. Someone might have donated that car. Range. This might be like a charity thing. It's like, hey, pay money. We'll give it to the kids' hospital. You get to beat up this car. The 2 guys fighting, that might have been like a sanctioned fight for the UFC. I mean, they're mean to Lee, but everyone else is just partying, having a good time. They're wearing their uniforms. Maybe it's a costume party. Maybe none of these people are cops. Tom? I mean, I guess I'm going to go back to Tim from Taiwan. I'm going to not assume the negative. I'm going to give all these guys their moment to kind of evaluate whether or not they're good or bad, you know? And
we shouldn't,
Donald's just, he's in red light. That doesn't mean he's evil. He just doesn't know the right light for his skin tone. That's something, right?
I don't know, man. Red is pretty evil. Haven't you seen Star Wars?
Yeah, red, like, good shot. Red 4 is the guy that blows up the Death Star. So red, good color. Yeah. Anyways.
Well done. Way to turn it around.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I misquoted that completely. So, all right. For those of you that are... Tom, anything else we need to cover from this episode, or did we nail it?
No, man, I think we nailed it. And again, I think I saw in a trailer that Peter Dinklage was going to be in this show, so I was so excited to know that this was the episode and to see him pop in. And again, I don't think we need him. If we get more of him, great this season, but I think he'd be a fun character to keep coming back each season if they do multiple.
Sure, I agree. Tom, we actually chatted with, or at least you got hit up by the gentleman that plays Ray in this show. And we just want to give him a shout out. He was very nice, and I honestly, the thing I am disappointed, if there is a disappointment in episode 5 and 4, is that we missed out on Ray, who was so much fun in the first 3 episodes. But
we had talked about how great he was in episode 3, and the chemistry that he, just like Peter Dinklage, had with Lee was just phenomenal. And yes, Michael Hitchcock was kind enough to reach out and send a post via Instagram from our show, and even had a quick little a DM chat. So very, very kind of him to take the time, and we love his acting in this show, and he's a great actor, and hopefully we get more of him. We want more Ray.
Sure, more Ray. That's 2028. More Ray. That's what I hope we all find. All right. For those of you that would really like to reach out to us, and we do like to hear from you, you can reach us at teambingepodcast@gmail.com. Once again, Tim from Taiwan, it was great to hear from you. You can leave us a review or rating, as long as it's very nice, at Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We do appreciate those. Tom, what did I miss?
Yes, and follow us on the socials at Team Binge or at Team Binge Podcast. Let us know what you think of the show. What are your theories? What do we think is going to happen? Especially after some of the twists and turns that happen-ish in this episode, especially with Donald. Like, what do people think? I'm very, very interested to know where we think we're going to go in the next couple episodes. Because we only have, I think we've got 8. So that was episode 5. We got 3 more. I'm excited for the conclusion.
Yep, me too.
We did it.
Tom, I have been Julian.
Julian, I have been Tom. Till next time, everybody.